Hello.
Hello everyone, I welcome you all to this new lecture series of GS paper 2. This series is actually going to be for governance portion, okay? So today we are going to start with governance. So my pattern would be to basically in every class, so from now onwards in every class, in the starting of the class I will be providing you one previous year question. So that previous year question will be from the topic that is basically we are discussing as of now, and in that topic and that answer you will have to write. So every online student who is watching me online can basically share the answer on mail to the academic team, and those who are basically watching it over YouTube, you can just drop a message. Okay, you can drop a message, and in that message you can drop your email ID. Okay, and how to share the answers, we will be providing you the details over that email ID only. Okay, so you can share that email ID in the comment section. Okay, so let's start now. First thing is basically we will be moving forward, and please one thing, just take out your notebooks. Okay, take out your registers and start making notes of it. Whatever I am dictating in class, please start making notes of it, so that at the end of this lecture series you will be having the notes of the static portion, and you will get a proper direction in the how to prepare for this section. You will be having sufficient static portion and a fair idea of the areas from where the question is asked, and after that what you can do is you can basically add on your current affairs in that. Okay, so in the first class we will be just discussing about the basics of governance. Okay, so what is the meaning of governance, what is good governance, what is e-governance, what are the main elements of governance, what is the difference between government and governance. Okay, see, as you know this very well that there are three organs of government. Okay, three organs of government. Just make this flowchart. Legislature, executive, and judiciary. So what is the main work of legislature? It is basically to make laws, to legislate laws. Okay, so the main work of legislature is to legislate, is to make laws at, and there are two levels of legislature in our country because we have a federal structure. So the central legislature and the state legislature. In the center it is called as parliament. Okay, which have two houses. All right, and in the state there can be bicameralism as well as unicameralism. Okay, so this legislature is actually not usually considered as the part of what we call governance. Okay, this legislature and judiciary both are actually not engaged in the governance function. Okay, now here talking about the executive, this is what we call as government of India. All right, whenever we usually refer to as the policy making, or whatever functions of the, come fast, come. Why so exhausted in the morning? अरे भाग भाग के आए हो तो इतने थके हुए नहीं आना है, ऐसे एनर्जी होनी चाहिए, और लेट हो गए। हाँ, और कहाँ हैं आपके दोस्त? क्यों? चलो देखो, organs of government. So when we talk about the organs of government, that is legislature, executive and judiciary. Okay, now the legislature is actually not involved in basically the governance function. It is the executive that is actually involved in the governance function. So when we often refer to as executive, so what is the meaning of executive? Executive is basically at the center, it is the prime minister and his council of minister. All right, so and also includes the permanent as well as the political executive. All right, so now talking about this is actually the government of India. And what we basically talk about government is now differentiate between government and governance. So government is actually talking about the state, okay, the body of state that basically makes the policies and carries out the governance function. So government is basically talking about the element of the state. It is state centric. But when we come to governance, so governance is actually the functions that are performed by the government. All right, so whatever the government performs the function, so it basically refers to the state machinery that in its execution of its duties basically do some task. Okay, for example the policy making, for example consulting with the people, for example taking into consideration the views of the every stakeholder. So these are the work that is basically done by the government, and the work that is usually done by the government is basically called as governance. All right, so let us first just have a quick note of what government is. So just write what is the meaning of government, right? What is the meaning of government? What is the meaning of government? Right, government refers to the, it is basically the formal machinery, okay, the formal state apparatus. Okay, so it refers to the formal machinery, formal machinery of the state that performs essential functions such as essential functions such as policy formulation, administration and implementation. Okay, so these are the major functions that are basically performed by the, just one second. Yeah, now write, or write one more line also. It represents the authority structure. Okay, it represents the authority structure that exercises power over a territory. Okay, so India is a territory, and the authority structure that exercises the power over the territory of India. Okay, so that basically authoritative structure is called as the government. Okay, that's the government. All right, so now write what is the meaning of governance. Now what is governance? Okay, like governance is a broad and a inclusive concept, right? Governance is a broad and a inclusive concept. Okay, it's a very inclusive concept. It takes into consideration not just the government but also multiple stakeholders that are involved in the governance function. Okay, so right, it refers to It refers to the processes from a mechanism processes, mechanism, and interactions. And interactions through which decisions are made and implemented. Through which decisions are made and implemented. Okay. It is basically the structure, the authoritative structure is basically the government, and the processes, the interaction, or the mechanism through which it makes the decisions and then implements the decision, that is called as governance. That process is called as governance. That mechanism and interaction. Now sometimes what the government do, government interacts with the people, it interacts with the media, it basically makes particular way how it will take the decision. So all those things basically constitutes the part of governance. Okay. Now, right, the involvement of multiple stakeholders, the involvement of multiple stakeholders multiple stakeholders in, you're right, government institutions, government institutions. So the first and the most important stakeholder is government institution. Now next is it also interacts with civil society organization. Okay, there are various organizations, okay, that are non-governmental organizations, okay, that is called as civil society organization, that is also involved in this. Now one more important thing is that in the process of governance, not just the government but also private sector is involved. But private sector is also involved in basically taking the decisions in the country. Okay. And one very important thing, it is not just the private sector but citizens of the country are also involved. Okay. All right. So it is that in the process of governance, so these organizations are, and basically the people. So it is not that the government is taking decision by its own wish. It consults with the private sector while, for example, implementing the industrial relations policy. So it consults with various private stakeholders, various organizations, environmentalists, common people of the country, and so many other groups. Okay. So that is so right. Thus, the governance is not just limited to the state authority, and in bracket right government. Thus, governance is not just limited to the state authority in bracket right government, but the reflects the collective management of public affairs, collective management of public affairs. Okay, so it basically talks about the how the affairs in the state, in the country, is basically collectively managed by the people, government, civil society organizations, NGOs, self-help groups, okay, common people. So how they collectively manage the affairs of the government, okay, how they, not government but the public affairs, okay, whatever happens at the public sphere, in the public sphere, okay, so that is basically the governance. Okay, so governance is a very broad concept. Okay, so it is not just a small thing. So now what is the difference between government and governance, right? What is the difference between government and governance? Either you can make table, or you can, what is this, either you can make table or you can write in point also. Okay, so right, on one side the government is, it is state centric. Okay, the majority of the things in government is basically related to the state. Okay, it is basically that the state authority plays the major role in the government. Okay, so at this stage in the government, public participation at large is not seen. Okay, but while talking about, but on the other side the governance is society centric. Government is related to, I would say it is basically related to control. Okay, how the government will control the people. Okay, how the government will exercise its authority over the people. Okay, so it is somewhat related to authority and control. It basically exerts the authority and the control over the people, but where on the other side the governance is related to the participation of the people. Okay, how it is majorly focused on processes, by what process the decision making will be made. Okay, so right, the process, and in this process how to bring everyone for participation. Okay, so it is majorly related to the processes and the participation. Okay, and here only state actors are involved. Okay, only state actors are involved, but on the other side in the process of governance, non-state actors are also involved. Okay, but on the other side, actors means any group, any organization which is not sponsored by the state, privately working, just sponsored by the people. Okay, so those are non-state actors. Okay, and write one point below that major point, not in the table. Okay, right, and hence governance is, yeah, governance can be understood as a network of, as a network of decision making systems, as a network of decision making systems where various actors interacts with each other, where various actors interacts with each other, and it is dynamic in nature. See, the government body doesn't changes constantly. Okay, the government bodies remains to be constant, but what changes whenever the needs of the society, the requirement of the society changes. So what is changed? The governance is changed, but not the government. The government remains to be the same, but how they govern the people, that changes. Okay, so and also right, and adapts to the changing societal needs, and adapts to the changing societal needs. Okay, whenever the needs of the society, the requirement of the society changes, so it itself adapts to those changing requirements and needs. Okay, so now the thing is ki, uh, the government is there, the state authority is there. Okay, so the government is there, and now the function that is carried out by not just the government but also the non-government actors also, that is called as governance. But just think of a situation, like just have a imagination of the situation during the time of Britishers. Whatever was happening in the government, whatever was happening during the governance of the country, everything was kept aside from the eyes of the common people. Okay, no common person was basically engaged in this making. Okay, earlier it was that the non-government actors were not allowed to participate. Okay, but now what is happening is non-government actors are also given a chance in basically participation. So we can say that it is not required that the governance must only happen, but the governance must also be augmented with other factors also. Like there must be transparency in the governance of the country. The government, howsoever is carrying forward its functions, it must be transparent. It must be efficient. It is not like 10,000 people are governing just 1,000 citizens, and that too basically in a very ruthless manner. That must not happen. It must be efficient. It must be transparent. It must be accountable to the people. It must submit its account. In real term, if we talk about this, it must submit its account. It must basically tell that yes, this was the tax that we collected, this was the expenditure, which was not happening before independence. So what we can say that it is not just Britishers government. At the time of the Britishers there was a government and there was a governance also, but still that governance was not at all fulfilling the needs of the people. That was not for the people. Okay, so that is why only governance must not be there. Governance must also be augmented with some other factors, and in turn then it will be called as good governance. Okay, so in the present time, in the contemporary situations, in the contemporary time, we are not just talking about governance, but what we are talking about is good governance. Okay, so now right, what is the meaning of good governance? So right, in the contemporary time, in the contemporary time, only governance is not sufficient, and it must also be, and it must also be must also be, what have you written? The contemporary time. Augmented with certain other elements of governance, like efficiency, transparency, accountability, responsiveness, and inclusivity, in turn to serve the public interest. In turn to serve the public interest. Okay, so basically to serve the public interest, the government must also perform these certain tasks. Okay, so it must be transparent, accountable, efficient, responsive. Together with all these elements, the governance will be called as good governance. Okay, the governance will be called as good governance. So now coming on to the main point. So this is basically the good governance. Yes, we understood this thing. Now coming on to the main point is, or before that, let us just have a one quick definition of good governance that is also given by UNDP. Okay, so just write, according to UNDP, United Nations Development Program. No, it didn't give the definition of good governance, but it just gave the definition of governance. Okay, so right, according to United Nations Development Program, governance involves the exercise of governance involves the exercise of economic authority, political authority, political authority, and administrative authority. Okay, so economic, political, and administrative authority. So inclusively, it is basically called as governance. Okay, also right, to manage a country's affairs at all the levels. Okay, at every level. So economically, politically, and administratively, how to manage the affairs of the public at large. Okay, in a country, it is called as governance. Okay, now right, what is the importance of good governance? What is the importance of good governance? No, don't just write importance, right? What is the right question? See what happens now when, अरे काटना नहीं होता है, when we basically write in such a way na, so our mind also, when you will read these notes na, then your mind will activate in the form that okay, now if this is asked, okay, then I have to write this. What is the importance of good governance? Okay, so see, good governance is first of all very much required for sustainable development. sustainable development, okay, that is a classic definition that was given by the Brundtland Commission report, that basically to carry out the development, keeping in into consideration the needs of the future generation. That is right. That is absolutely right. But the major thing here is that sustainable development means a development that does not damages the environment. Okay. Yes, you exploit the resources, but in turn, it must be in equilibrium. It is not that by damaging the entire environment you are doing the development of the country. It is not like that. It must not happen like that. Okay. So when the governance is basically, when the governance is, I would say, good governance, when it is transparent, okay, how things are being done, when it is efficient, when it is responsive, when it is like having all these elements, at that time we can say that yes, now we can expect sustainable development in the country. Without, like, if there will be only governance, then the probability that it will be sustainable, the development of the country will be sustainable, that's very less, because then the development of the country will never be sustainable. All right. So now, moving ahead, it is also required to basically inculcate a public trust. See, for example, if you are the government, you are not transparent. I'm not, like, I'm not able to understand how you are collecting the taxes, from where you are collecting the taxes, where you are using that tax money, in which sector, what developmental work is going on, how things are being carried forward. Then I will not be basically able to understand the functioning of the government, or to have an insight into the functioning of the government. Then I will not trust you, obviously. There will always be a gap between the government and the people at large, okay, in the country, if there will be no concept of good governance. So good governance is also required to inculcate trust in the minds of the people. Okay. Now, if there will be good governance, then the legitimacy of the government will be more. See, it is not that any government we will be accepting. Why are we just accepting the Modi government at present? Because we think they have won the election by getting the vote, the n number of vote which is required. They got the n number of seats in Lok Sabha. They formed the government. That's why they are. That's a legitimate government that has followed a proper process. Now, to increase the legitimacy of the government, this good governance is required. This good governance is very essential to increase its legitimacy. All right. And also basically to enhance the quality of life in the country. Okay. How the people are living, but to enhance their quality of living, how they will live. Okay. So to enhance this quality of the people, to increase the social welfare measures in the country. Okay. And to basically strengthen the democratic institutions. See, democratic, we are living in a democracy, and democratic institutions are basically, for example, legislature, executive, judiciary, UPSC, SPSC, election commission, Niti Aayog, and several n number of bodies. Those are basically the democratic bodies. Then we will get to know about their functioning. Then those bodies will be responsive, those bodies will be transparent, those bodies will be accountable to the people. It strengthens the democratic working of the society. It strengthens the democratic decision making in the country, and in turn strengthens the vibrant democracy already existing in the country. It strengthens the democracy in the country. All right. So that is the main reason why good governance in a country is very much required. All right. So just right. What? हाँ, एसी नहीं, पंखा बंद कर देते हैं तो सही रहेगा, मेरे को भी ठंड लग रही है। अब हवा कम चलेगी ना, कुछ कुछ राहत नहीं, देखना अभी थोड़ी देर में ठीक लगेगा। राइट। राइट। फिर बंद कर देंगे अगर फिर भी लगा ना, ठीक है। अच्छा, सो राइट, फर्स्ट पॉइंट, या don't write first point, just write good governance is essential in the functioning of a democratic country because, write the first point, it promotes sustainable development. It promotes sustainable development. Okay, because it promotes the sustainability of the development of a country. All right, now right, next point, it enhances the public trust in the institutions, in the governmental institutions, like election commission, comma UPSC, comma etc. And it also enhances the legitimacy, and it also enhances the legitimacy of the government. Right, next point. Good governance improves the quality of life of the people, quality of life of the people, and improves the implementation of social welfare measures, and improves the implementation of social welfare measures. Okay, by making them transparent and accountable. All right, then right, next point. Good governance strengthens the democratic institutions of a country. Good governance strengthens the democratic institutions of a country. Okay, so by which the democratic institutions in a country gets strengthened. All right, so there are several studies also. Those are not normative, even empirical studies that are carried out by several organizations, that states that the quality of the governance in a country that directly impacts the societal outcomes. For example, you implement a scheme. Okay, the government implements a scheme, and the government is carrying out it a good governance. The scheme is being transparent, the government is accountable in that. So by doing this, by good governance, it basically uh, increases the societal outcome. See, a scheme is implemented for basically the people. Okay, a scheme is implemented because we want certain outcomes from that scheme, because we want x number of outcomes from that scheme, and because we want certain outcomes from that scheme, so it increases the societal outcome. By good governance, we don't just live in a procedural democracy where just elections are happening, government is being elected, and everything is going on the same way. No. By good governance in a country, not just the procedural democracy, but the societal outcome also increases. It improves the substance in a democracy. All right, right. Various empirical studies shows that various empirical studies shows that governance quality, the quality of the governance has a stronger impact, has a stronger impact on the societal outcomes, on the societal outcomes. than mere procedural democracy. Than mere procedural democracy. Okay, it increases the societal outcome and not just the procedural democracy. Now we will be seeing the definition given by UNDP of good governance. Put this heading, okay? So the definition of good governance given by UNDP. So UNDP has given certain principles, all right? So first of all, make a, I would say there are 9 principles, all right? So make a bubble kind of structure, okay? So ठीक है, लग रही है ठीक है, चलो लिखो. So for right first, participation. Rule of law. Okay, you must have made it a bigger one, but लंबा एरो डाल के लिख लेना फिर नीचे, ठीक है. Transparency. Responsiveness. Consensus orientation. Equity and inclusion. Efficiency and effectiveness. Accountability. strategic vision. ठीक है, बना लिए सारे? तो now put the first point. थोड़ा थोड़ा now we will explain this. So right, first point, right, participation. Right, the core element, the core necessary element of good governance, good governance is the involvement of the citizens and every possible stakeholders in the decision making of the country, in the decision making of the country. ठीक है, so involve everyone. All right, so now also, right, next point in this participation, it requires that the citizens of the country must have access to information, in bracket write RTI, right to information, right to information, okay, bracket close, and freedom of expression, and freedom of expression. All right, so it is not that you, the people of the country must only participate, they must also know in turn what is going on. It is not that they daily basically participate in the decision making. No, that's not at all required. Everyone neither have the efficiency nor have the knowledge, and even don't have the time also to participate in the daily decision making. For that, they have appointed their representative, but in turn, they need the right to get any information about whatever is happening in the government. All right. Now, write one example also. Public consultation. Okay, public consultation. Now write the second one, rule of law. Now rule of law states that now who should be supreme? The law should be supreme. How the country will be governed? According to the law. Yes, that thing is very different, that the law must also be right. Law cannot be harsh, law cannot be wrong. That the judiciary will see, but it is the rule of law states that the law must prevail. What should prevail? Law must prevail. All right. So write rule of law, and in that write law must be applied equally to all. Law must be applied equally to all. And like if we think that the law is made by the government, but when the law is there, now the government will also have to follow that law. Okay, including the government, right? Including the government. Even the government will have to follow that law. All right. Now, who will basically adjudicate if any dispute is there? Judiciary. So, in the next point, right, It requires an independent judiciary and respect for rights. It requires an independent judiciary and respect for rights. Okay, the rights of the citizens, people must be respected. Okay, so in the example, right, public consultation. No, no, public consultation will not be a part of this. Right, constitutional supremacy. What should be supreme? The constitution should be supreme. Okay, the constitution should be supreme. And also, right, judicial review. Now, if any law is also not right, then must also be reviewed. Judicial review. Now, write the third point: transparency. Transparency. Okay, right. Uh, Transparency, right? See, transparent means everything must be in public domain, right? So, right, decision making. The first point, right? Decision making processes must be open and accessible. Must be open and accessible. Everyone must be allowed to access those institutions. Don't write this, just for your explanation. And in the next point, right, citizens should have access to the relevant information. So it is not that you can ask whatever you want, but yes, every relevant information, whatever is relevant for you, must be there with you in the public domain, right? Also, right, example, open data portals, comma, free press. Now, write the fourth one, that is responsiveness. Now, responsiveness is that, right? Institutions must respond promptly to the needs of the citizens. Must respond promptly to the needs of the citizens. Okay. And also, right, and the focus must be on timely delivery of services. Focus must be on timely delivery of services. Okay, so the services must be delivered on time. Okay, so example में लिख लो, time bound public services, comma, time bound grievances redressal systems, time bound grievance redressal systems. Okay, the systems which basically addresses the grievances of the people, it must also be time bound. Okay, now right, next is consensus orientation. Say there is diversity and the interest of the people is very much diverse. Okay, so it is consensus means that everyone must be, basically the decisions must be made according to the, or when everyone agrees to it. Okay, it is not that you are taking unilateral actions. Okay, no, it must not be there. Okay, so right, institutions this consensus orientation, right? Institutions must govern by reconciling the diverse interest of various sections of people. All right. So there are various sections in the society, and the decisions must be made by reconciling the diverse interest of everyone. All right. And also, right, the focus must be on achieving. The focus must be on achieving a common ground among those people. It means a common ground must be achieved. Okay, let's say there are 20 groups of people. So there must be a common ground on which everyone agrees to. All right. Without their agreement, the things must not be carried forward. All right. So example, right? Public hearing, comma consultations, public hearing, consultations. हाँ बिल्कुल. Why not? Definitely it will come, because language disputes are widely there. Okay. Right. Now put the next one. That is आपका क्या है? Effectiveness and efficiency है ना? हाँ right. Then write that. Equity and inclusiveness. In equity and inclusiveness, right? देखो इसमें क्या है कि it is equality must be there, it is respected, but see, when everyone is not having a same level playing field, then why to expect equality? It must be equity. The communities that are deprived must get something more, that is affirmative action, and the communities that are not deprived must not get the extra thing. Okay. So right, all the sections of society, and especially the disadvantaged one and the vulnerable groups, must be included, must be included to ensure that equal opportunity is given to all. Okay. So that everyone must be given equal opportunity. All right. So also write in example, performance based, और बट परफॉर्मेंस तो नहीं इसमें कुछ एग्जांपल, वेलफेयर स्कीम्स लिख लो. वेलफेयर स्कीम्स. ठीक है. एफर्मेटिव एक्शन लिख लो. एफर्मेटिव एक्शन. नाउ पुट द नेक्स्ट हेडिंग. ठीक है. दैट इज इफेक्टिवनेस एंड एफिशिएंसी. इफेक्टिवनेस एंड एफिशिएंसी. Okay. So it must be that whatever efforts are there going into the task, the result must be good. Okay. So right, there must be, and see, in the society the resources are always limited. Okay. So there must be optimal utilization of the resources in order to achieve the desired goals. In order to achieve the desired goals. Okay, so to achieve the desired goals, there must be optimal utilization of the resources. All right, and also right, there must be focus on timely delivery of services, but along with it, the quality, but along with it, the quality of the services must also be a matter of concern. Must also be a matter of concern. ठीक है. Now write the आपका accountability है ना अगला. हाँ. It is very simple. The decision makers, the decision makers, right? The decision makers must be held answerable for the actions that they undertake. Okay, so the decision makers must be held answerable. All right. So and also right, even कोई भी हो, चाहे public institutions हो चाहे private institutions हो, ठीक है, right? This applies to both the public institutions and the private institutions. Okay, so it applies to both. All right. So, for example, right, parliamentary oversight of the executive. Parliament, what they do? It oversights the executive. Okay, it makes them answerable. Now there is a concept of strategic vision, and this strategic vision says that, all right, the strategic vision वाला है, ठीक है ना? Right. See, there must be long term planning. All right. It must not be just that कि भाई अभी हमने प्लानिंग कर ली और हमारा जो है अभी बस हमें ये करना है इस साल नहीं. It must be long term vision. So good governance will only be then only, है ना, when we think of long. So right, there must be long term planning for the sustainable governance of the country as an extended principle, as an extended principle of good governance. Okay, so also right, it requires oversight, अरे oversight, foresight, forward, foresight बोलते हैं ना, आगे का सोच के चल, ठीक है. It requires foresight and policy continuity, and policy continuity, ठीक है. अब देखो क्या होता है कि ये एक वर्चुअस साइकिल है, ठीक है। वर्चुअस साइकिल कैसे है? वर्चुअस साइकिल ऐसे है कि जब कभी किसी देश में, मान के चलो फॉर एग्जांपल इन एनी कंट्री देयर इज गुड गवर्नेंस, so this good governance, what it will do? By doing good governance, by being transparent, by being accountable, by being efficient, what will happen? It will first of all strengthen the democracy. All right. It will also basically strengthen the institutions. Whatever institutions are there in the country, those will also be strengthened by this. And by implementing this good governance, we will achieve developmental goals. All right. Now, by this, what will happen? By good governance, these things will happen. And by these things, again in the country, there will be good governance. Okay. So, it's a virtuous cycle. Okay. It's a virtuous cycle that repeats itself. All right. So, right, put a heading virtuous cycle of good governance. And right, it refers to the positive feedback loop where, as a positive feedback loop, where effective governance builds effective governance builds public trust and legitimacy, public trust and legitimacy. Okay, right, full stop. It increases the legitimacy, no, it increases the good governance further, and in this way this positive loop repeats itself. In the next point, right, this cycle further strengthens, this cycle further strengthens democracy, democracy, comma, developmental outcomes, and institutional stability, and institutional stability. All right, clear? So, but there shall be some conditions for this. All right, without those conditions this will not be, because there must be societal, basically I would say, values, okay, of the good governance. All right, and there must be also proper recognition of this. So ये सब होना चाहिए, ठीक है. Now change the page and put a heading evolution of governance in India. 2 minutes break. Just come on, okay? So what we do is we generally don't uh, study the evolution of governance before the Britishers. Okay, because what happened before that time, there were so many empires in the kingdoms. They were governing according to their own way, and that we study in the history part, like what was the administration during that their time. Okay, so there was no collective centralized administration in the country, so that's why we cannot study that as of now here in governance. The governance word basically we study pre first phase will be pre 1947 phase, where it was the colonial phase. Okay, and in the colonial phase the primary focus of the Britishers was basically to maintain the control over the entire territory of the country and to basically extract the resources. So whatever they were governing was directed towards this, maintaining control and extracting resources, maintaining control and extracting resources. All right. Now the administrative structure here during the time of Britishers was highly centralized. It was highly centralized. All right, and it was authoritarian. No public needs was taken into consideration. No concerns of the people in large were taken into consideration. All right, nothing happened like that, and basically the public welfare was not at all given any kind of priority during their time. All right, despite this, so the first phase, the colonial phase, the colonial phase. All right, so during this colonial phase, right, please improve your writing. It must be legible. All right, it must be legible, otherwise, see, why generally in UPSC, why we talk about handwriting. The thing is, in UPSC there is no extra marks for writing. All right, there is no extra marks for writing, but in every class of GS and optional, I majorly give emphasis on improving the writing of the students. Why? Not to make it good. We don't have to calligraph in the means answer sheet. What we have to do is it should be legible. All right. See, the copy checker don't know us. They doesn't know us. They will only able to understand that we know the things asked in the exam by only seeing the copies, and never dare to trouble those examiners. If they will be struggling while reading your answer, the impact will definitely be there on your marks. Don't trouble them. Make whatever things you can easy for them to check your copy. Make it, the words must be large enough to just be visible enough. The gap should be maintained. The line must be proper so that we don't trouble them. And in turn, they will not trouble us. That must be done. All right. Now, right, in this phase, the governance was designed. The governance was designed primarily to maintain, primarily to maintain the control over the entire territory of the country, over the entire territory of the country, and the major emphasis of governance was to extract the resources from the country, comma, drain the wealth of our nation, in the best way possible. That was their major emphasis. All right. Next point, right? The administrative structure during the time of Britishers was the administrative structure during the time of Britishers was highly centralized. and the nature of governance was highly authoritarian. And the nature of governance was highly authoritarian. Okay. Next point. Next point in this. During this time, no priority was given to the welfare of the people at large. To the welfare of the people at large. Okay. No priority was given to the welfare. Now write post independence. Okay, now write post independence, and first in the first time we will be discussing about 1947 to 1991. All right. So during this time, the major emphasis was on see social justice, because the country was very poor during that time. Poverty was widely prevalent during that time, and basically the emphasis was on the social welfare measures, social justice. The planning was being developed in a proper planned way. Okay, the planning concept was there, and even the major emphasis was on nation building, how to basically unite our nation, how to ensure the territorial and the integrity of the country, how to maintain the sovereignty, protect the integrity of the country. So major emphasis was on this. All right. So, and even the feature was that the country was looked at as a welfare state organization. All right. The the role of the government was very major during this time before 1991, before the time of liberalization, privatization, and globalization. The majority role was played by the government itself. All right. And basically during this time there was major expansion of the public institutions. During this time, the major role played by the economy was done by the public institutions. So institutions were having the majority control in the entire country. Just write this. After independence and before the liberalization of the economy in 1991, and before the liberalization of the economy in 1991, the major emphasis of governance in our country was to focus majorly on was to focus majorly on nation building, comma, providing social justice to the people, because there was wide prevalent gap in the social status of the people, because there was wide prevalent gap in the social status of the people. गवर्नेंस की क्लास में बहुत लिखना होगा. कितना लिख लिया है? Because these are going to be your static notes. ठीक है? And I don't want that the students put any extra effort in making notes of governance at least. ठीक है? I really don't want that. So never do that. Okay. Why gap in the social status of the people? Okay. And also there was a concept of planned economic development. According to which 5-year planning system was put at place in India. Okay, so 5-year planning system was put at place in India. All right. Also, right, the major feature of the governance during this time was the welfare state orientation of the government in the country. Okay, the government was welfare state oriented. Okay, and of the government in the country. Right, and right, and the role of government in the economy was highly strong. Right, it was highly strong, and there was deliberate expansion of the public institutions in the country, and there was deliberate expansion of the public institutions in the country. The public institutions got strengthened up during this time. Now, right, post liberalization phase, post liberalization phase. Now, what happened in 1991? India adopted the policy of liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Okay, so by which what we did was we basically uh, adopted to the policy that there must be decreased role of the government, or the government's presence must be minimalized. Okay, must be the minimal, and the promotion of the participation, transparency, and technology driven governance must be there. All right, the state must basically decentralize the governance. Okay, there was major emphasis because during that time only, in 1992, 73rd and 74th constitutional amendment was carried out. Okay, it was basically passed. Okay, and by which the decentralized governance was given a constitutional status. All right, Panchayati Raj institution and the municipal governance. Okay, that is urban local bodies. Okay, so the governance was now more transparent, digitalized. Okay, more accountable to the people, and now the major emphasis was on reducing the role of the government, minimal governance, and more outcomes. It was like that. Okay, so just right. During this time, major economic and market oriented reforms were introduced in the country. economic and market oriented reforms were introduced in the country, and now the governance in the country became more and now the governance in the country became more participatory, transparent, and moreover technology driven. Now the major role was to be played by the technology and technology driven. Next point, the major key developments during this time was the introduction of decentralization by passing 73rd and 74th Constitutional Amendment Act, and providing the local level bodies a constitutional status, whereby making decentralization mandatory and constitutional. Okay, made the decentralization mandatory and constitutional. All right, that was a major thing that happened during this time, right? Next point, right? There was growing role of digitalization in the governance, and thereby came the concept of e-governance. Okay, and thereby came the concept of e-governance. Okay, so e-governance got introduced, and also there was an increasing role of private sector and civil societies in the governance of the country. Private sector and civil societies in the governance of the country after the introduction of the policy of liberalization, privatization, and globalization. Okay, and also in the next point, right, the major outcome of this new model of governance was greater citizens participation, because the participation of citizens increased in the governance of the country, and improvement in the service delivery models in the country, and deliberate enhancement of efficiency and transparency. Deliberate enhancement of transparency and efficiency. All right. So these were the gradual things that were going on during this time. Okay. So there is a Department of Administrative Reform and Public Grievances. Okay. So that has identified the governance as a multidimensional concept. Okay. And that has given the political, legal and judicial dimension, administrative dimension, economic dimension, social and environmental dimension of governance in India. Okay, that is a major point that needs to be studied because this can help you in writing your answer. All right. So after basically writing that model, then we will see the governance, that is how it is basically going on in India and what are the major obstacles to the good governance in our country. All right. So just put a heading, dimensions of governance in India. So right, Department of Administrative Reforms and has identified, what have you put, the like what is the heading that you have put? बताया था, you must have written the dimensions of governance. Yeah, right. Has has identified governance as a multi-dimensional concept. Okay, so here you first need to write the dimensions. All right, dimensions as it is. Just first write that. Then we will be basically writing the other things. All right. So write the first one, political dimension. Legal and judicial dimension. administrative dimension, economic dimension, social and environmental dimension. All right. So just write the first one, that is political dimension. Okay. This concerns with this concerns with the functioning of the democratic institutions in the country. Okay. Of the democratic institutions in the country, like the electoral processes, comma, public accountability, and role of leadership also. Now write the second dimension, legal and judicial dimension. Okay. So it focuses on the law and justice delivery in the country. So right, it has certain dimensions like, no, that's not right dimension. It is in itself a dimension. It has certain aspects like independence of judiciary, comma, access to justice, and enforcement of laws. And enforcement of laws. Okay, it deals with this. Now write the next dimension, that is administrative dimension. It is related to the functioning of bureaucracy and public administration. Functioning of bureaucracy and public administration. Okay, so it is related to that. All right, and also, right, the key features of this dimension are policy implementation, comma, service delivery, and coordination among various departments. Okay, coordination among various departments. All right. Now write the next economic dimension. It is like management of any economic resources, like implementing the economic policies. Okay, so right, it concerns regarding the management of economic resources. It concerns regarding the management of economic resources and the policies, okay, in the country, and the policies in the country. अब इसमें क्या क्या आता है? बजट, फिस्कल, so it includes budgeting and fiscal policy, comma, regulating the market economy, and the promotion of growth and development in the country. Although these points are self-explanatory, and the promotion of growth and development in the country. Okay. So now the next one, that is social and environmental dimension. Its major focus is on inclusive and sustainable development. All right, the social justice wala or sustainable development wala. Okay, so this dimension of governance focuses on inclusive development and the sustainability in the economy. And sustainability in the economy. All right. Okay. ऐसे लिखो, it includes welfare schemes, comma, social justice, welfare schemes, comma, social justice, and environmental protection. Okay. Now the next one, it's over ना, 5 हो तो गए, 5 ही थे है ना, तो 5 dimensions हो गए. So now the thing is, our focus must also be on discussing like what exactly the issues are there. All right, but see, there will be a broader topic at the last of it. All right, where I will be basically highlighting all the problems that are there, obstacles or the problems that are there in the governance in the country. All right, so now one question can be asked on people's, yeah, public participation in governance. Okay, so the thing is, what benefits are drawn from this, and why major public participation is not seen in the governance. Okay, let us know this topic. So put a major heading, that is people's participation in the governance. People's participation in the governance. Okay. So what is the meaning of this? It is that the policies are regularly being made, it is being implemented in the country, and basically the people's participation refers to the active involvement of the citizenry. It means actively including the people in the governance of the country. All right, that is the people's governance. Yeah, people's participation. All right, it means the governance must be for, by, and with the people. Okay, it must be directed for the people, and people must only do it. Okay, by the people also, and also with the help of the people. All right, that is people's participation. Just write that. People's participation refers to the active involvement of the citizens in the decision making, and implementation of the policies. Okay, so also write, it reflects the democratic ideals that the governance in the country must be for, must be for, comma, by, and with the people. All right, but it must be like this. Okay, now we shall discuss the, now put a question, what are the, yeah, what is the importance of people's participation, है ना? So already discussed points again. So just write the first point. When the citizens are involved, तो क्या होता है, और एक्सेप्टेंस मिलता है डिसीजन को, हमने लिया है ये डिसीजन, क्रेडिबिलिटी मिलती है गवर्नमेंट को, है ना? When citizens are involved, comma, the decisions gains more acceptance and credibility. Gains more acceptance and credibility. That strengthens the democratic governance in the country. Okay, write one more point. Participation enables the citizens to question the authority and to question the authority and demand justification for their actions. Okay, they must justify why you took this action and what is the effect of this action. Okay, so also write, inclusion of the people in the governance leads to the inclusion of diverse viewpoints. Okay, everyone will give their input and will give different viewpoints. That leads to more realist policies, more realist policies and better implementation outcomes. Okay, better implementation outcomes. One more point, it also empowers the people. Okay, it gives a sense of empowerment. लिख लिया अच्छा so एक सेकंड लिखो ऐसे citizens gains a sense of ownership. You take the decision, you'll think that it's my decision, I have ownership. Citizens gains the ownership and responsibility in governance. Okay, so these are the like importances of people's participation, why it is required. Now write a question, what are the challenges to effective participation of the people in the governance of the country? What are the, चाय पीते हो उसमें तुलसी डाल के पिया करो. आई ऑलवेज सी यू विद कोल्ड, है ना, इम्यूनिटी बढ़ती है उससे. देखो, व्हाट आर दी challenges to the effective participation of the people in the governance of the country. All right, this has to be done in the next class. All right, so and from next class we'll be giving you a question that you will have to show me. और ये सारे में से now what you have to do, you have whole week. In the next week when I will be taking the class, I will be asking you give me few pointers for this. ठीक है, तो just learn this. ये आपका काम है कि आपको learn करके मुझे pointers जो है वो सुनाने हैं, है ना. You have to give me the pointers कि अच्छा ये है, ठीक है. I don't want the explanation of the entire topic, but just want that you give me the pointers to that. Okay, chalo, we'll be doing the another this topic in the next class. All right.